start with the big one. Start at the top.
Right. Tommy Frank, straightening in the car park.
Is that the big one? I got on Dennis Hobson.
No, I think we'll get to that one. We'll get back to Sheffield via London. Shall we start with?
Go on. We'll start with the big one. Saturday night. Anthony Joshua, Kubrat, Pulev.
Really get arena, does it, in terms of British boxing?
Yeah. Big fight. Sky Sports box office. I know you'll have a lot of views on the whole package and the whole lot, as you tend to do when it comes out of pay-per-view fights, Andrew. So just your thoughts on the matchup, your thoughts on everything to do with it. What's your initial?
I think, first of all, it's important to mention that it is a mandatory for Joshua. In that sense, he didn't have a choice in the opponent. Apart from that, it's hard to get excited about. And this is the biggest backhanded compliment I can pay Joshua. I've said this for a while about him. I'm not interested in seeing him with these routine defenses. I think most people's predictions, mine included, is that he's going to stop Pulev round the middle round, mid rounds, maybe go a little bit later, possibly. I've seen in predictions anywhere from knocking him out in 3 to sort of 7, 8, 9. I think stylistically, Pulev's fairly straightforward for him. He's quite slow, quite big and cumbersome. He's going to be there to hit for Joshua, and as we know, Joshua hits too hard. He's too sharp for someone like that to lap the distance. I'm just laughing at you. You look like you're looking through a little peephole or something. Like zooming in.
It's the lighting in this house. I just see you.
One comment on Twitter or YouTube or something's got you paranoid about your lighting in your living room.
Is that what someone said?
I look like it was harsh, didn't they? Going from the intro to the.
I look like a ghost. I'm thinking, am I this white? Am I ill? Do I need a sunbed or something? Christ.
Like Kelly Pavlik, the ghost.
Gotta sit with a heat lamp on us.
For those listening in audio, you're missing out on half the fun. Yeah, I don't know why we didn't go into video sooner.
You'll just see his glowing throughout the interview, just getting redder and redder by the end of the podcast. Anyway, sorry.
With all that in mind, just to finish off my point there, I think most of us anticipating this is a fairly straightforward routine defense for Joshua. Obviously, we know how that's gone in the past. Andy Ruiz Jr. was the biggest, roundest banana skin in recent boxing history. And out of that, the Sky hype, the promotion, matchroom, whatever you want to call it, they've managed to generate a whole heap of interest in Joshua in building that rematch. They're getting rowdy in Saudi or whatever it was referred to as. I don't know if that was the official tagline.
Wasn't it like Clash on the Dunes or something?
Yeah, exactly. Nowhere near as catchy. That was it.
That should have been rowdy in Saudi.
It's interesting that's how much and sort of how well they did out of that event, because in theory, there's no way they'd have wanted Joshua to go over to America and lose to Ruiz, but it sort of presented them with a different opportunity, some way of having a sort of fresher outlook on Joshua and what he brings to that event, because since he won the world title, apart from the Klitschko fight, every fight has been pretty much the same in that it's been sold around Joshua, this guy who's the Olympic gold medal, world champion. He's been pay-per-view regardless of opponent since British title level, since the Dillian White fight. And considering how big he is in boxing and how much I love boxing, I haven't been that interested in the matchups. I'm interested in watching him and seeing how he does, but the opponents he's faced haven't done a massive amount for me, and that's again backhanded compliment because of how highly I rate him, because I think he beats everyone in the world comfortably, apart from Fury, apart from potentially Deontay Wilder. So even though Pulev's probably a top 10 opponent, it doesn't do that much. And if you listen to Sky, they are now sort of going along the lines of, it's as pivotal a moment for Joshua and AJ as the Ruiz fight and the Ruiz rematch. It's just important for him because if he doesn't win this, then the undisputed goes out the window and all the rest of it. But you could market that Joshua fighting anyone and have that same tagline attached.
I think that's only, to me, that's only true and sort of relevant if he fights Fury next. But then that's opening a whole other can of worms. He's touched on, he's like on his CV that there, it's not horrendous by any means. Do you know what I mean? Like there's some good names on there, like Klitschko and Povetkin, and others. But just going back to the fight itself, I think he touched on a good point there. That I think this is the one, right? That you said it, and I think the same as you, and other people are saying it. That they think this could be the one that where he rolls back the years and he knocks him out, and it's like that sort of come forward Joshua, like the aggressive Joshua, the brawler sort of thing. And I think in a sense it might have to be that way as well. And what I mean by that is if he struggles or if it's unconvincing or if dare I say it's boring, then it's just I don't think it's going to do him any good, sort of perception wise, because I think the yardstick now for the heavyweight division is Fury's sort of demolition job of Wilder 2, which was just like unbelievable, unreal. And I think if Joshua sort of falls beneath that again, with the doubts of the two Ruiz fights still being in people's heads and minds, and I'll say the doubts, all right, he answered some questions the second time round, but it wasn't a classic fight, and there was a lot of people that didn't enjoy that fight one bit, and but that's what I mean by the boring type of thing, like the vulnerabilities from the Ruiz 1, and then the sort of cagey boringness of Ruiz 2, followed up by another shaky, unconvincing one here against Pulev. I think, I don't know, just affects his standing a little bit, maybe in the public's eye. And I just think to sort of go into 2021 with a bit of momentum, and if people are really going to talk up the Fury fight, then I don't know. I think he needs to match him step by step. And going off Fury's last fight, that demolition job of Wilder, he needs to look good on Saturday. I think he needs to win and win well, and sort of get him out of there. Old school AJ style.
It's interesting you say like roll back the years because he's only like it's in a weird way he's gone like all of 2020 through no fault of his own and 2019 without a knockout win. You've got to go back to Povetkin for his last stoppage win.
Yeah.
But Ruiz, the rematch is the only time he's ever gone the distance as a pro, and I think with all the fanfare and promotional push that he's had, if he hadn't done the business and wasn't knocking these guys out through every level that he's stepped up to, then the support he's got, the push that he's got, and the money he brings, everything about him, his profile, wouldn't be what it was. We've talked about like the value of knockouts when you're trying to build a fighter and big them up and promote them. He just delivered on that, and I think the Ruiz first fight, you can arguably sort of put that down to was he right going in? Like, he's been caught by a good shot. He's been outboxed, outlanded, and beaten up essentially. But he regrouped. He showed there's more than one way to skin a cat. He played it safe. There's no doubt in that. But he did what he had to do, and he got the win against Ruiz. And it was almost like, despite doing that, he still hasn't answered a lot of the questions that people have, because the questions are around how he copes and what he does when he's not having things his own way. And on a lower scale, we talked about Daniel Dubois and building up that level, getting to a point where he's had some resistance essentially in the ring, and like the same with Anthony Yard last weekend. But with Joshua, we're talking at a much higher level. But there are still those sorts of questions. Like if Pulev can take what he's dishing out and push him and force him onto the back foot and make things uncomfortable for him, how does he respond then? And it seems a bit remiss to be sort of asking these questions, because Joshua showed that in patches against obviously Klitschko being the main one, but because he's lost to Ruiz and in the fashion he did, there's a lot of pressure on him, as I say, to perform well, and not necessarily to respond to these questions, but to come out and really dominate, really put it on Pulev, and essentially, as I say, get him out there, get the stoppage. I think personally he will do that.
Same.
Might be a bit cautious easing his way into it, but once he sort of gets back in the ring, does stop a bit of the ring rust and starts letting his hands go, realises he can hurt him again, like hurt someone again. So he didn't really hurt Ruiz in the rematch, but like, he's got that power, definitely. I think with Joshua, a lot of it is confidence, and this fight, well being enforced on him, could be the perfect tonic to boost his confidence. And as you say, going to 2021 with a bit more self-belief and head into that, hopefully, in the Fury fight. But leave that one and see it, I think.
No, I totally agree. Like you said, and like I said before about rolling back the years, and like you probably noticed on our Twitter this week, I was just doing a bit of digging down his box rec, and I guess surprised to see that he hasn't actually stopped anyone in the first 6 rounds since he blasted away Eric Molina in the third in 2016. So for someone who, the perception of a lot of fight fans is that, you know, probably mostly, I guess, because of his sort of ascent to like maybe British sort of level, and maybe and that Charles Martin fight, I guess, that he's some sort of destroyer, like this missile, this wrecking ball of a fighter. And actually, all right, when he does stop it tended to be later in recent years. So yeah, 4 years, you've got to go back December 2016, since he stopped someone in the first half of a fight, and that was Eric Molina. And I just think, and that leads us on to my next point about Pulev, really, and that's, you know, 6 years ago now, Klitschko sort of brutally stopped him. 6 years ago, I think 2014, and it was pretty unlike Klitschko at the time. That wasn't really his style, but he really got aggressive in that fight and floored him, and it was quite a savage knockout. You know, and Pulev was properly sparked out on the floor, just waved off. And I think that's 6 years ago, and you know, I'm not sure of his age off the top of my head. Is he touching 40 now? The Bulgarian?
39 years now.
Aye. And that's what Klitschko was doing to him in 2014. It's now 2020 going into 21. You know, so I guess without sort of putting pressure on AJ, is that he's expected to get rid of him and do it in style, I think. And I think anything less than that on Saturday night will probably be looked at as a bit of a failure, I guess. I would fully expect the stoppage. I think it could be tailor-made for him, like you say, with that style he's got, with all his physical attributes and advantages. I think if he wants to get a stoppage, this is a bloody good chance to get one.
It's a bit of a lose-lose for him in that regard, then, because if he does go out and smash him to bits, you'll have the haters, the naysayers pointing out that he's nearly 40-year-old, he's long past his best. But again, I think in terms of a mandatory, we've seen a lot worse challenger than forced on champions in the past in different weight classes. And I think with Joshua, you've saying there about the early knockouts drying up. That's almost inevitable when you step up the levels. Like, you look at them in that body of work, like he hasn't got, apart from again Vlad Klitschko win, like a massive standout name on his record. And there's the debate about that version of Vlad against, like, compared to the one that Fury beat and how they beat him. Like, he got dropped, Fury didn't, but AJ stopped him, Fury didn't, and all the rest of it. But you look through the body of work, and I think I said earlier, like, Ruiz was the rematch was the first time he'd gone distance. Obviously, that was the Joseph Parker fight.
Yeah.
So there's the two he hasn't won by stoppage. But you look like to Parker, Povetkin, obviously what he's done to White since. Like, Ruiz, been sharing 2 fights with him. Even Carlos Takam at the time was like a decent name, like late replacement, I think. But he's consistently beaten like decent, good level of heavyweights, like not the elite in the sense of a Fury or a Wilder, but it's not like he's fighting nobodies. Like, he's fighting decent challengers. It's just because the high standards that you hold Joshua to, I think you look down almost at these other names because he hasn't fought like someone who is peer, essentially, someone you'd class and give a good shot of beating him. Every fight he's had, you favour Joshua going in, and probably partially because of the promotional push, and you think he's almost getting like the preferential treatment and the bit of favouritism going into all these fights and home advantage and all these little things that add up to the boxer being the, loads myself saying it, the A side.
Yeah.
I think the likes of, again, Fury and Wilder, the only ones you'd see as being potentially 50-50. So if he's not fighting either of those, you automatically almost like subconsciously rule it as a bit of a negative, and that he's not really challenging himself. But outside of getting one of those names in, there's not a lot else he can do, and we've just got to hope that gets this Pulev one out of the way, and the Fury fight does happen. I mean, well, I'm not going to use this preview show to sit and talk about a fight that's not going to happen, but that's where ultimately where both guys are going to get judged. And
that's a good point.
I'm a big Fury fan, but I'm going to apply the same logic. Like if he doesn't fight AJ next, I have relatively little interest in whoever he faces. Like if he fought Dillian White or Povetkin or whoever, like it wouldn't have the same appeal to me as him getting in with AJ.
I know, and that's a whole new argument, and you could go into, well, there's a little bit more goodwill on Fury's side because he's fought Wilder twice. Do you know what I mean? And if you're going on like the holy trinity of the three big heavyweights, but then that's another discussion. And I just think getting back to Saturday, I think when you touched on there about it being a lose-lose, and you know, if you go through the different scenarios, you think like AJ smashes them quick, say he smashes them in first, then you'll get the fucking disgrace, 26 quid for that. Oh, God, you'll get that. But Pulev, why doesn't he just fight Fury? You know, so you've got that side of it. If he goes long and he goes points and it's unconvincing and it's a touch bore, and then it's, oh, shite him, that's three shite fights in a row. You know, so like 26 quid for that. Like it is sort of lose-lose, no matter how he does it on Saturday, unless it's an absolute life and death war between the two of them. Like he's going to get grief from all quarters, and I think that's the pedestal he's on, and that's the pedestal that Sky Sports box office and Matchroom would sort of give you. He's there to be shot at, and you know, no matter how he wins it on Saturday, and I'm assuming he will win it, he's probably going to get grief off some people, and like you say, until the big one's made, then you're not going to keep everyone happy, really. So, but
speaking of keeping everyone happy,
go on.
Can we have a look at some of the other highlights on the card?
I know. 2 seconds. I was just going to wrap it up. No, I was just going to say I agree with what you said earlier, that Pulev's not by any means a disgraceful opponent. He's probably a top 10, at least definitely 100% a top 15 heavyweight. Mandatories are there for a reason, and let's just see how it goes.